Hello, my name is Liam Wilson and I'm the founder of the Law Hub UK. I'm joined today by Stefanie Smith, and she's a paralegal at Tiger Law, an innovative law firm. Hello, Stefanie. Thank you very much for joining me.
Hello, Liam. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Could you, so for the purposes of everybody watching the video, could you just sort of tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I am currently a family paralegal at Tiger Law. We are quite a new law firm based down in Kent, but we have members of the team who are, well, they cover England, Wales, Scotland, South Africa. We've got people dotted around all over the place. I've been with the firm for about a year now, and I hope to graduate via CILEx, fingers crossed, all being well, next March.
Oh, that's great. So you mentioned CILEx. Can you sort of describe your sort of academic journey to becoming a lawyer?
Yeah, certainly. So I never went to university. In fact, I don't have any A-levels. I finished my school years way back in 1996 at the age of 16 and started working. I went to college briefly for a short while, but then soon realised that I preferred working. So did that for a couple of years. And then when I was around about 18, I joined a local law firm as an office junior. And so my role there was opening post, helping out on reception, and that's quickly progressed to covering reception, you know, in at times of annual leave and things. And then I became a junior secretary, and I worked in family then. And so I think really that's where my interest started in family law. And I worked in that firm for a couple of years. And then I met my husband, I had a daughter, and we moved to New Zealand. And when my daughter went to school, I started working in a law firm again. And I covered reception and secretarial work, kind of a bit of everything really, office manager. It was quite a small firm, so there were, I think, 3 fee earners and the accountant, so I kind of did a little bit of everything. So I did family work there, but I also did wills and succession planning and a little bit of commercial conveyancing, but not a great deal. And actually it was there that the owner of the law firm said to me one day, have you ever thought about studying to become a legal executive? And I said, oh, I don't really know what that is. And so she explained to me that, so in New Zealand, there's something similar to the Open University, and it's called Open Polytechnic. So I went home and subsequently looked into it, and I thought, actually, yeah, I think I could do this. So that's really where my journey to qualifying began many years ago. I think that was probably about 12 years ago now. And then I started studying. I was working 4 days a week, raising my family. I would work in the mornings before work, in the evenings, at the weekends. And I completed about 50% of the course. And then we moved back to the UK. And I applied to CILEx to have my course converted, or what I'd done so far, assuming that as New Zealand law was based on English law, they would be quite flexible, but in actual fact they weren't, which was a bit disappointing. But I understand it entirely. So I had to start afresh with studying. So I went right back to the beginning, and I started studying for the level 3 certificate in law and practice. And that was 4 years ago now, actually, literally just 4 years ago I started. And as I said, I hope to sit my last exam in January, all being well, and then I should graduate in March, which is incredibly exciting.
It is, yeah. Sort of, it's a good feeling when sort of you get to the end point and sort of, and you know that your final exams are sort of just around the corner, and then sort of you're free then. So how did you, when you heard sort of about CILEx from the Vienna in New Zealand? So did they have CILEx? Well, it wasn't. Was it CILEx over in New Zealand, or
it's similar? So yeah, I mean, they are called legal executives, so similar type of thing. I don't know the detail in terms of qualifying as a solicitor when you've completed your academic training. I'm not entirely sure about that because obviously that was a long time ago now. But then when I came back to England, I started working as a secretary, and so I did that for about 6 years, about 6 years. And then at that time, you know, the lady I worked with, again, you know, she said, have you thought about starting your CILEx training? You know, I'd never really kind of aspired to be a lawyer. It was not really something that I never thought about it when I was younger. I just assumed, because I had never been to university, that it was completely off the cards. And then, of course, when I realised that you don't need a law degree to become a lawyer, or in fact to, you know, to be practicing law, then I was thinking, oh, actually, I think I could do that. And I think I'd reached a stage in my life where I was determined to succeed. So yeah, that's really kind of how it came about, and without the CILEx route, that I would not be able to, you know, I mean, I could potentially, if I wanted to, I could get a law degree and kind of do it that way, but you know, the experience that the CILEx route brings you is just so invaluable, really. You know, I've been working in law firms for many years now, and you know, that just means that you know, any role really in terms of, you know, support or fee earning, I've got that experience. I you know, and I've not only worked remotely, of course, I've actually worked in a law office with paper files, and you know, so.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you when you first realised that sort of you wanted to be a lawyer, but I suppose you just answered that question. So I assume it was when the Vienna said to you, you know, mentioned the legal exec course, and that sort of prompted sort of you to look into it. And so before then you hadn't sort of heard of CILEx, because from what I understand, CILEx had sort of been going through, I think, I'm sure, the 1970s. So, but it was relatively unheard of, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think it not so much now, and you know, and I'm a huge advocate for CILEx, and I tell everybody about it, but I think it's been almost a little bit institutionalized in terms of it's never really gone outside of the law profession. You know, it's never been, as far as I know, certainly not in my area, something that was at careers fairs, you know, those types of things. It's not, you know, a lot of the law students I speak to who have been at university or at university know nothing about CILEx, you know, but with a law degree, you can convert your qualification and qualify without having to have a training contract. So in my mind, I don't really understand it, because it takes nothing away from the traditional route and the learning that you do at university. It just gives you an option when you've completed your degree to qualify in. So you know, I think really, as I said, I think things have evolved massively over, you know, that certainly since I've been studying with CILEx, and a lot more firms now are advertising for solicitors, or FCILEx, which, if you don't know, is a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Legal Executives. And certainly if people advertise roles and they don't include that, I will contact them and ask why they haven't included that, because there's no reason at all why a fellow of CILEx should not be also applying. And often some people will say, oh, well, of course we would welcome applications from fellows. Okay, we'll put it on your advert then. you know, there's no reason to differentiate between the two. So I will always do my best to pick people up on that, because there's just no reason. But I think probably going back to your original question about, you know, deciding when I wanted to become a lawyer, I just never imagined myself as a lawyer, because the profession, you know, probably not so much now, but has quite a traditional kind of, when you picture the profession, it's got quite a traditional way of people interpreting what a solicitor is, or the type of person a lawyer is, or a barrister, or, you know, and I just never thought for a million years that I fitted in to that profession. And I have actually been in, you know, in firms in the past where I've been treated like I shouldn't be there, or, you know, I've been talked down to, and, you know, and I've been told that, you know, I might not receive the same level of respect as a, you know, a peer for whatever reason. And, you know, so I've just kind of been downtrodden a little bit over the years. So I just never thought that it would be possible. But of course, that's not true, you know, because it is possible. So
picking up sort of on sort of those points that you've raised there about the traditional aspect, well, the legal industry being so traditional, it's been my experience that I can't say I have encountered it a lot, but there are those, and it tends to be from the older generation of lawyers, who treat chartered legal execs differently to solicitors. Now, I know many chartered legal executives who decided, you know, didn't want to go any further, didn't want to, you know, have that title of solicitor, but actually get paid an awful lot more than their solicitor counterparts. I mean, my personal view is that I would personally, if I was employing a lawyer, much prefer a chartered legal executive over a solicitor who's qualified through the traditional route, because of the experience, because of the different aspects that come with CILEx, because you're drilled in, you know, regulatory aspects and compliance, and from right at the beginning, and legal research. So you don't do all of that at the end with your legal practice course. You do it right from the start with CILEx, don't you? So so has that been your experience about
yeah, I agree entirely, and I think it's because we are knowledgeable about the CILEx route. And I think this is the problem. Not so much now, but 5-10 years ago, you had a lot of managing partners or directors in firms who had no knowledge of the CILEx route. So they don't understand what it is that a CILEx lawyer has gone through, you know, in terms of their academic training and also their work experience when they actually qualify. Now, when you compare that to somebody who has done the LPC and then done a 2-year training contract, the experience is completely different. And quite often as well, people who qualify via CILEx have either worked as a legal assistant, a receptionist, a secretary. So they've had that experience of actually sitting on a chair in a law firm. Whereas when a trainee comes in who's doing a training contract, yes, of course, they have their bum on a seat for X amount of months and they get to experience the, you know, the areas of law, but it's not that everyday kind of practice that we bring as, you know, as CILEx lawyers. And I completely agree. And I do honestly think that it just comes down to education in terms of sharing the knowledge. And that's what I'm really passionate about, because, you know, when I qualify, when I complete my fellowship, I'll have been working in family law for almost a decade, you know, and so that, as far as I'm concerned, you know, that is priceless, you know. And I think we need to continue to send that message out to people. It is much easier now, you know, there is a lot more recognition and there's a lot more variety coming in, but I completely agree with you, you know, and for me especially, so the route I'm taking with CILEx, I'm doing the specialist pathway to family. So because I know what I want to do, because I've always done family pretty much, my units have been kind of molded around family. So I've done obviously family at level 3, level 6. I've done the related units to those, so criminal, you know, and it's like a package. So again, in terms of academic training, I've taken the best package of courses possible, and you can do wills and succession, you know, as a package. So again, I've trained as a specialist in family law. You know, I haven't just dipped in and out of different areas of law, not really sure what I want to do, and then decided at the end, which is technically what you do when you have a training contract. So yeah, I think it really just comes down to educating and shouting about it. And, you know, as I said, there are not a great deal of firms now that don't know about CILEx. I mean, there are even some firms that are regulated solely by CILEx, not the SRA, which is fantastic news. And I certainly know for me, if it, as I said, you know, if ever I see anybody talking about solicitors and CILEx, then to me there should be no difference at all.
No, I completely agree, and I think it's just the awareness that we need to sort of to boost, really, because I really can't see why anybody would want to go and read law for 3 years and come out, and even after the LPC, you're still not, even though the LPC is supposed to prepare you for practice. You know, I mean, I was fortunate. I was 7 years of experience before I even did the LPC. So when I did the LPC, I actually found it probably more of a struggle than everybody else, because I was like, well, this is not how you put
we do it in practice. Yeah, so no, I get that.
When it came to advocacy, I think nobody speaks like that, or you know, or that actually doesn't happen. Or when I came to client interviewing, I had to change the way I interview clients so that I met these set criteria, and it was bonkers. So why you would want to go to university and then do the LPC, because it's got this status about it, I suppose. So you've got more of a smooth transition in your career as a lawyer. But personally, I don't find that to be the best route at all.
No, I agree. And I think as well that the CPQ and potentially the SQE will deal with that a little bit as well, because for both now, as I understand it, you need to have the qualifying experience. A bit like with CILEx, you have your qualifying employment. So I think it is kind of making people get into law firms, and as you say, I certainly, you know, as part of my qualification, I've done level 3 and level 6. I've done client care skills and legal research, and when I did the client care, you know, doing attendance notes and things, which I've done for years, you know, and I'm thinking, well, we don't usually do that, but for the purposes of passing this course, we need to do it a particular way, so that's fine. But yeah, no, I completely you know, can relate to that.
I often found on the LPC, it was as though I became a secondary sort of lecturer. All the students sort of flocked to me because I was the only one with actually nobody else in the sort of in my class sort of had any experience. But you know, when there was a sort of question asked to deal with this scenario, I jumped to to dealing with the scenario, and they go, no, you've got to set it out like this and this. And I don't know, but you know, nobody cares. Just when you've got a client in front of you, or when you're dealing with a particular matter, you don't need to go step to step to step. You do, you know, you deliver. That's But what other benefits do you think the CILEx route offers aspiring lawyers?
Well, I mean, as I said, you know, I never thought in a million years that I would study law or be on track to qualify as a lawyer. Never, ever, ever in a million years. Partly because, as I said, of my background and, you know, the type of person that I am. I had a preconceived idea of, you know, the type of person that could become a lawyer, and in actual fact I think that's still present in lots of law firms still, but hopefully over the next, you know, not too distant future that will start to dissipate. But I think the benefits are the flexibility. You know, I have been studying for 4 years. I have been working throughout that. My daughter is now 16. We've also got a son who has just finished university. So you know, I have a husband, and I've been able to work all of that around studying. But I've also been able to pay my bills, you know, at the same time. So, I mean, I've been in a fortunate enough position. Well, I haven't been fortunate enough to receive funding from an employer for various reasons. Not where I am currently, but in the past. There are lots of people who are lucky enough to get funding from their employers, but I've been fortunate enough that I've been able to afford to fund my studies myself, and I haven't had to take out a student loan. You know, the learning providers that offer CILEx training, you can pay by instalments. So, you know, that flexibility is fantastic. You know, so it suited my lifestyle. You can have a break at any time if you want to. You know, you don't have to do it back to back to back to back. You know, there are people that have qualified by CILEx and it's taken them over a decade to do it. But that's fine. It doesn't matter. You know, it just fits in with your life. And, you know, the big point, of course, is the experience that you get with, because you have to have qualifying employment. You have to be in a law firm, basically. And that's what I always say to people: go in as a temp. That's how I got my job. When I moved back from New Zealand, I started temping at a local law firm as a family secretary, and then they offered me a permanent job. You know, and then I moved to another law firm after a couple of years, and that's when I started my CILEx training again. So, you know, telephone, answering the phones, reception, admin, post, you know, anything, just get your foot in the door, and then that is what, of course, will help you with your experience, really. So it's incredibly flexible and anybody can do it. That's the thing which I love, you know.
And in terms of the timing as well, the process of studying CILEx, say if you didn't take any breaks, it works out just the same as the traditional route, doesn't it?
Yeah,
pretty much exactly the same.
Yeah, so I mean, I know, so for me, for example, when I did level 3, I did 2 units at a time, and sat exams in January and June, and just did that without any break at all. And then when I progressed to level 6, I did the legal research and client care units at the same time, but didn't sit an exam then, because I knew doing the jump up to level 6 would be quite big, and I just wanted to give myself a bit of a break, to be honest, because I'd spent so long, you know, obsessing over exams, which is tough, you know, and you need the support behind you of your family. It's not just about you, it's everybody around you. So I took a little break, and then I've got 1 more exam to sit, which will be in January. And then all of the academic stuff will be done. And by that time, it would have been, so September is 4 years, October, November, December, January. So 4 years and 4 months technically of academic studying. And then all being well, I should graduate in March. So yeah, I mean, it's not, I mean, there are people that do it in a couple of years, but they tend to be people that have just come out of school, or they don't have a family, you know, who can just completely, you know, immerse themselves. And that's fine, you know, if people want to you know, do it that way. It all comes, you know, you can do one unit at a time. You can take as long as you like, you know, which is just the beauty of it. So.
I mean, so and I think the way the exams are structured and because the course is quite a vocational course, it really does prepare you a lot, and it goes a long way to prepare you for practice. You know, it's like the legal practice course, aspects of the legal practice course combined in CILEx, and you're doing that straight, you know, from the very beginning, because of course you do take the you know, legal research and the client care you know, straight away, but also the way the exams are structured. You know, section A, I don't know whether it's still the case, is sort of more like an essay, the essay type questions where you get to discuss the law, and then you've got section B, which is actually your application of the law, which you don't get with you know, law degrees.
Yeah, that is still the same.
Yeah, they're sort of, it's just theoretical. So straight away, it's preparing you for practice. So you're gaining that experience, that practical knowledge that if you're in employment, you know, is added on, and it's just building you up constantly, you know, throughout. So yeah, I mean, what, in terms of being a lawyer, what would you say are the qualities of a lawyer? I mean, that's trying to define it, isn't it, a bit much?
Yeah, no,
what would you say?
I mean, I think it really depends on the area of law that you're in. So I am in family, and whenever people ask me why I chose to become a lawyer, or want to become a lawyer, obviously I will in the future, it's because I like helping people. And it really is as simple as that. So outside of my work, I do quite a lot of volunteer work as well in my local community. I head up the local litter pick group that we run. My husband and I run a residents wildlife group in our village where we live. You know, I volunteer at my local church. So I am just the type of person that likes to help people. And so if I can do a job where I'm helping people, well, as far as I'm concerned, that's a win-win for me, you know. So I think really that all it comes down to. Now, I'm not litigious. If I can settle something, I absolutely will. And of course, in family law, that's vital, because nobody wants to be going to court if you can avoid it, particularly where there are children involved. You know, and I will always say to my clients from the outset, you know, we will do everything that we can to keep this out of court and to get this settled as quickly as possible. And I had a wonderful teacher, if you like. So the job that I worked in before, I was a senior secretary at my last law firm, and the lady that I worked for in the main, I shared a room with her. And so she would sit, you know, behind me, and I would be sat here doing my secretarial work. And so I heard everything that she said to her clients. I heard what her clients said. She then dictated to me, which I then, of course, typed up. And so I've just had a way of practicing law ingrained in my mind. And that happened for, well, 4.5 years, you know, and that exposure really taught me a great deal about family law, and also about the type of family lawyer I wanted to be. And I can be quite outspoken. Outside of work, I can be quite outspoken. I am quite forthright. I'm quite confident. I'm a little bit like Marmite in some situations. I probably annoy the hell out of some people, but you know, that's just the way we are. But when it comes to doing my job, I try to be the best version of myself as I possibly can, which is the right version of a family lawyer for my clients, if that makes sense. You know, so I really kind of try and it's a practice, I guess. You know, I am putting on my lawyer hat because I myself, it's not me that's trying to achieve the outcome, it's me following the law, applying the law and speaking on behalf of my client. And quite often in family, people they don't know what to say or what to do, and they're full of emotion. And so you almost have to kind of take control of the situation, but remember also that there's another party involved, there are potentially children involved, you know. So I think becoming a lawyer and the type of person and the skills really depends on the type of lawyer you want to be. For example, a litigator, you're probably going to like an argument, as in like not arguing, but you know, you like to make your position clear, you like to check every single kind of, you know, something that someone said and rip it apart, and you know, so, which I get entirely. But as a lawyer, that's not me. I might do that outside of work, but that's certainly not me in work. So, you know, it really does depend.
Yeah, I mean, sort of, and family law is such an emotional area of law, isn't it, really? There are emotions sort of flying all over the place. And so it does, you need to have, you know, be calm and collective, and, you know, sort of be able to sort of step back a little bit and make sure that you achieve the best for your client,
Yeah, definitely.
notwithstanding all the emotional upheaval, really. Could you sort of describe what your day-to-day life is as a lawyer?
Yeah, so I am fortunate enough that the law firm, you know, where I work, Tiger Law, I have my own caseload. Which quite often, if you're a trainee, so whether that's a trainee legal exec or a trainee solicitor, you wouldn't necessarily have your own caseload, but I do have my own caseload, which is great. Obviously, my work is all completely supervised, so that allows me the flexibility and the confidence to make decisions. But of course, those decisions aren't crystallized until they've been checked, you know, by somebody else. So, I mean, really on a day-to-day business, it's just really kind of managing my files, you know, checking in with clients, making sure that I'm meeting any deadlines, you know, just really running a caseload. I don't do, whereas when I worked as a secretary, obviously my work was predominantly administration based. And again, with the, why that's relevant is because with the CILEx route to qualifying, you have to be in qualifying employment, which is 20 hours a week of wholly legal work. So that has to be, for example, writing letters, meeting with clients, you know, attendance notes, following up, you know. It can't be things like photocopying, dictation, you know, typing up dictation. So you have to be doing the right amount of right work in order to qualify. So that kind of determines really what I need to do and what I like to do. You know, and I have the flexibility that if I reach a point where maybe some of my files are finished, I can say, actually, I need to take on some more work, you know, and that work is given to me, and that's great, really. You know, the support that I'm receiving is excellent, so I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, sort of, what, in terms of employers and sort of, or, you know, finding the right fit in terms of a law firm, because there are so many different types, and from my understanding of Tiger Law, it is a very innovative sort of structure, and how the firm is sort of run, really. What would you say in terms of finding the right employer or the right firm? Because it's very difficult, isn't it, to get
I mean,
the right fit?
I think it's crucial, particularly for somebody like me. You know, as I was saying earlier, I'm not to everybody's taste. I get that, you know, and I probably irritate people, but I have spent many years in other law firms and quite often have come up against people or decision makers that maybe not personal, but for business reasons, I haven't been able to progress, which has been frustrating, particularly when you put in many years of hard work and you want to progress in a law firm, but then, you know, a barrier is put in front of you. You know, that is not how things are at Tiger. You know, it is not like that whatsoever. You couldn't ask for a more kind of encouraging and kind of open employer, because whenever you go to Vanessa and or the team, you know, any idea is discussed and spoken about. It's not just, oh no, well, we don't do that here, or oh well, we tried that and it didn't work before, or for this reason it's a no. You know, there's never really any of that at all. And so I think for me to be able to progress professionally as an individual, I think meeting Vanessa, the timing couldn't have been more perfect, really. And I met her at a networking event, and we connected after the event, and we just started talking, and from there it progressed into me going to work for Tiger. And so I think there are law firms out there that are amazing, you know, they really are, and the traditional law firms suit lots of people, but for me it didn't suit me. I just knew after many years of trying and being treated pretty, you know, rubbish by some people, I kept my mouth closed because I knew that I would, you know, I couldn't say certain things, and that after that grinds you down. And I did get to the point where I just thought, actually, do you know what, I've worked really hard to try and get somewhere, and now I'm just being told no constantly. And then it started to feel personal, and I just thought now is a good time to move away from that. And then that's when I stumbled across Vanessa, and there are many law firms that have a similar kind of, you know, way of doing things. And, you know, I hope that anybody that feels that they are being held back, you know, from their dreams and aspirations, I just hope that people would have the confidence to go looking for the right fit, because they are out there. Sometimes it just takes a little bit longer to find them.
I mean, so I've had situations where I was once told, I mean, I openly said that, you know, my secondary school wasn't the best, and I knew it wasn't the best. My mother didn't want me to go to the secondary school that I went to, but I followed the crowd because I was young and naive, and I didn't fit in. And I do make that sort of public knowledge, but I was once told that I should read more, and that I would be given a reading list, and it was as though I wasn't educated enough to be a lawyer. Yeah. And actually, I really had a far more common sense and far better understanding of human behavior and why people do things, yeah, than this person, so that's I've had a sort of a negative environment as well, sort of where it's you sort of suppressed and kept at a certain level, and I reacted to that by because I was quite outspoken, and I was always very respectful, but certainly at the very beginning, because you have this view, don't you, of what a law firm is supposed to be like, and then I was quickly disabused of that sort of idea the minute I walked through the door on my very first day. So I sort of became quite outspoken, and also because I think one of the things that you have to to actually understand yourself is what your worth is, what your worth is to, you're not worthless. What value you bring to a company. So because I developed this confidence, I realized what my worth was because I did all sorts of things to support the company. I realized that I was a valuable asset. So that gave me some license to sort of be a bit more outspoken. But, I probably wouldn't have been so had it not been such a suppressive, negative, toxic environment, really. So, I mean, you mentioned, Sorry,
no, go on.
You mentioned that, networking, that's how you met your sort of current employer. I noticed that you're very sort of prominent on LinkedIn, very active. What value would you put on networking?
Well, it's quite interesting actually, because I have worked at firms in the past where we've been actively discouraged from going on LinkedIn in a personal capacity and posting personal views, and at that time I didn't really know anything different. I was quite institutionalized and I hadn't really had much experience on LinkedIn, and of course LinkedIn has changed over the last 18 months quite dramatically, and now I'm in an environment where that is completely the opposite. So it is now all about our personal branding and our personal development, building relationships with people and meeting people and just kind of finding our own identity. And I think particularly with the team at Tiger, we all have our own personalities and none of that is shied away from. And I remember when I used to have LinkedIn before I joined Tiger, I had quite a professional photograph on there, and what was it I thought was a nice photo. Eventually I just thought, actually, do you know what, I'm not going to have that picture on there anymore. So I changed my profile picture to a photo of me on a memorable evening. I was at an awards ceremony where my brother-in-law had swum the channel and I had crewed his boat. And so, that was quite a significant evening for me and a memory that I wanted to hold and be proud of. So I changed my profile picture to that. And then I've got my background picture, which is me kind of paddleboarding in the harbour in Dover. And because it was about me, my LinkedIn profile is there for various reasons, but one of them is because it's about the person I am, not just about what I bring to my work. So I mean, for anybody, networking is a no-brainer. I mean, I have been in the profession in the olden days where we did in-person networking, so I was quite used to that, and in actual fact I went back to that last week, and I've also got something else on this Friday which is very exciting, because it's great to see people again, great to meet people. I've met people that I have connected with online in the last 18 months and I've met them for the first time in the flesh. So I just think, again, being a lawyer is not just about being a lawyer, it's about being a human being. And just because I talk a certain way, or just because I come from a single parent family and was raised on a council estate, or don't have any A levels, none of that is relevant to the type of lawyer that I am, because I'm in my 40s now, and this 40-something-year-old self of me is the person that's going to be that client's lawyer, and certainly in my professional capacity. So that's what's important. There's no point in getting away from you as a human being, because that's who we are. So yeah, networking and getting to know people and then getting to know you as a person is invaluable, really, and particularly for people who are aspiring to become lawyers. Then it's really just about chatting to people, I think, and who knows what opportunities might come from having conversations.
Yeah, so I mean, it's really about being individualistic rather than being sort of conforming to what you perceive the industry is, isn't it really? You mentioned a couple of things there towards the end about it doesn't really matter about your background in terms of what school you went to and things like that. What is your, I know it's a very controversial point, but what's your views on equality and diversity in the law? Because it's something we get asked to complete a questionnaire, don't we, every year? What sort of your sort of views on that, really? I mean, you've covered most of it, really.
Yeah, I mean, I work in an environment where we are very diverse. In terms of my firm, I'm talking about, we are very diverse, we are very different, we are very modern and forward thinking, and there is, in my mind, there is no reason why anybody should not be able to do something or have a particular conversation or go to a particular place or join a particular community or club purely because of a personal characteristic. You know, that literally, it is as simple as that in my head. It makes no sense to me. I feel empowered as a woman in law. You know, I am a committee member of the Women in Law Kent group. We're quite new, but I recently joined their committee. I certainly don't feel a minority as a woman in law. I know there are many people that do feel like that. And I know there are probably a number of law firms that are very prominent in their, particularly in their managing team, you know, in their executive board, predominantly male, usually white, you know, but you're not going to change that overnight. That, you know, I think it will change, but it's going to take time. You know, it may be by that time I'm close to retirement, you know, hopefully. But again, there are many law firms who are headed by amazing, not only women, black women, tattooed women, of all things, you know, women with pink hair, you know,
That's true.
It is changing. And I think that when young people come into law firms, because now they are, most of them have tattoos, they might have pink hair, they might, you know, obviously from all sorts of backgrounds, ethnic minority groups, they will go in with an expectation that none of those reasons should hold them back from progression and being amazing and doing what they want to do. And I think eventually, after time, that will die out, that traditional kind of, you know, law firm. I think it will go, but I think it is going to take time. But I am a huge supporter of anybody that wants to change and wants to talk about what we need in law. You know, we have in our law firm, do you know Phil Steventon?
I do, yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, so Phil is just an incredible person, and I've never met him in actual person at all, but I've built up such a close bond and a relationship with him. He's just an amazing guy, you know, and the way that he talks about his neurodiverse journey, and, you know, it's just wonderful. It really is wonderful. And I think that all the while we have people like that, powerhouses who are determined to put themselves out there, people like Vanessa, you know, business owners like her. And as I said, you know, pretty much everybody in Tiger is there because they have got something to say, and they're tenacious and they are bringing something extra to the law. And that's the way that I view it. Those people are bringing something extra, and I hope that this continues to just build and build and build.
Yeah, I mean, it's so useful to have a different perspective. Why you would want everybody with the same ideas and the same perspective. I mean, it just wouldn't work out. I mean, my own view on equality and diversity, we complete the questionnaire every year. I suppose you and I both complete two, because we do one for CILEx and one for the SRA. And I deliberately, on every single question, tick prefer not to say, as a bit of a making a statement really, because I don't understand why they want to collect this information, because in my personal opinion, nothing should make, the questionnaire asks whether you receive free school meals, whether you were the first generation to go to university, whether you consider yourself to be the same gender as what you were when you were born. What does any of that matter? The only consideration that should be given when employing somebody is their ability to do the job. What does it matter about everything else?
Yeah, no, I agree.
And so I get very disappointed when I hear, I probably do consider myself a feminist. There's no doubt about it, because, and in my experience, only in my experience, the female lawyers have been much better than their male counterparts, much better lawyers, because they bring other aspects from home life that are useful in a career in the law. It doesn't necessarily have to be because they work in family law or anything like that, but their ability to juggle so many different things actually, in my opinion, makes them better lawyers, really.
I think for me, it's funny because, like, this is something that it's always really been kind of in my mind growing up. So I grew up in my household with my mum and 2 siblings, and so my mum did everything. She did all the DIY, she did the upkeep of the house, she went to work, she raised the kids. So in my house, I do everything. I go to work, I raise the kids, I do the DIY. I mean, the other week I had a few days off work and I was labouring for the builders that have just put a new roof on my house, because to me, it doesn't matter if I'm male, female, or any other identity. I'm going to do something because I want to do it. So I've grown up with a mindset that a man or a woman or any other identity is any better at doing a particular task. And there are some jobs that, only one group does, and some jobs only. That is just not a thing in my world. And so to me, that's not a barrier to anything. I wouldn't walk into a room full of men and think that I was any less than them because I'm a woman. There might be another reason, for example, a random reason, but that has never entered my head. And so being a woman has never stopped me from doing or wanting to do anything I've ever wanted. I'll happily get my hands dirty. I'll happily, blood, sweat and tears, I'll put it into anything that I want to turn my hand to. So and I think that I probably am attracted to those types of women in terms of my friendship group and professional group. So to me, it's just never been a barrier. It's never really a thing. So I don't really, obviously there are people that have experienced that, but I've not had that. It's not been specifically because I'm a woman. It might have been because I don't talk in a certain way or, something like that, but never really, but just because I'm female.
Yeah, I mean, same with me, really. My, all the women in my life have been strong, independent women. So I never grew up thinking that women couldn't do anything. And so I've had a lot of female influence in my life. So that's probably, so I've never thought about anybody being unequal. But yeah, it's a shame. But I was so pleased when I did the LPC. There were far more women than men. So there were, out of a class of about 22, there was only five men, including myself. So that was fantastic. So it seems to be that there are more women coming into the law now than ever before, and I think that's such a a great achievement.
Yeah,
really.
fantastic. And you know, I've got a 16-year-old daughter, and I'm raising her to be strong and independent, not particularly a strong and independent woman, but just strong and independent, because her gender does not dictate the type of person that she will be, you know, and she is very strong and she is very independent, and I'm incredibly proud to have achieved that, you know, with her as well. So
yeah, I mean, it's certainly important not to let anybody define who you are. I mean, you're the only person who can define, you know, yourself and make your own path. So just to finish off, what advice would you give to those aspiring for a career in the law?
I think that if you know, anything is possible. And I think that I am an example of that. You know, I didn't choose to become a lawyer at an early age. I didn't think I would ever be a lawyer. You know, I am not your traditional kind of, you know, person that you might pick out from a lineup and go, oh yeah, you know, that person's a lawyer. Or, you know, I just think if you are determined enough, you will make it happen. And I think it's important to talk to people and get out there and just make a life for yourself. And it may well be that, you know, what I'm doing now, there's no way I would have been able to do this in my 20s. No way at all. So it may well be that you want a career in the law, but you're just not ready for whatever reason, or there's other things that you want to do, because the life skills that I have now from moving to the other side of the world, raising a family, you know, or all of those transferable skills that I bring. You know, I have a stepchild, although I never refer to him as my stepchild, he's our son. So when I talk to clients who have never been in this situation before, you know, he's been in my life since he was 2 years old. I can relate to my clients because I've been there. You know, I myself I have a stepmom. You know, I had another house when I was growing up that I used to visit at the weekends. So I can relate to those people that are coming to me with those problems. So it may well be that you're not ready when you're 20 or 25. Obviously, there are some people that are. But in actual fact, there's no harm in doing it when you're 45 or 55, you know. So if you feel like, for whatever reason, it's not quite the right time, then don't completely disregard it. You know, I think just keep your options open and just see how things pan out. And you can get your academic training done and then just get into a law firm. If it's you'll soon know if it's what you want to do. You will know very quickly. And then just build up your experience, and then kind of you'll know soon enough.
Well, that's brilliant, Stefanie. Thank you very much, Henry, for taking the time to share your journey and some advice with us. Thank you very much.
That's okay. It's been really nice to speak to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Stefanie.